Quote, "Never say anything that doesn't improve on silence." End quote. Yates's characters were more often than not outsiders, misunderstood characters that were rejected by the community. They would, like most real-life people, strive to belong somewhere, very likely because of his own upbringing and rough childhood. Perhaps the reason he chose to create and flesh out such characters was that he found little interest in successful people. Rather, the failures, they intrigued him. Although he appreciated the allure of failure in writing, he didn't write malicious or outright evil characters. He felt that, despite there being evil people in the real world, characters that reflected such evil did not work well as characters in fiction. To him, that made it too easy for the reader to blame everything on that one character, thus removing gravity from the story. He preferred the kind of story where the reader was left wondering who was to blame, and that hopefully it would dawn on the reader that he or she had to bear some of the responsibility of the blame, at least on an emotional level, on account of being human and therefore infinitely fallible. Now, regarding his style of writing, he was a slow writer, painstakingly obsessed with details, which most often left him dissatisfied with the early drafts of his work, which additionally in turn made his writing process a time-consuming and expensive endeavor. According to him, most of his first drafts read like soap operas, leading him to repeatedly go over a scene in order to get the desired emotional depth. He suspected that if he hadn't revised and edited heavily, he would be a superficial writer. Furthermore, he added that the first draft for Revolutionary Road was very thin and very sentimental. The book was written longhand and took an arduous 5-year-long process to complete. Now, Richard Yates knew that he would never change and would never write with the speed and confidence that he saw in the work of others. Nevertheless, in a letter he wrote, he suggested that the time it took to write a book bore no relation to its worth. He went further to elaborate that, despite the fact that it had taken Fitzgerald only 10 months to write The Great Gatsby and Edward Louis Wallant less than a year to write The Pawnbroker, his work was no less than theirs, and vice versa. Working time, in other words, has nothing whatever to do with quality. Now, a longer quote by Yates about the autobiographical element of his writing. "I'd written a good many careful, objective stories over a good many years, stories in which there may always have been an autobiographical element in one sense or another, but in which none of the characters was ever wholly myself. Then I wrote Revolutionary Road the same way. There's plenty of myself in that book. Every character in the book was partially based on myself, or on some aspect of myself, or on people I knew, or composites of people I knew. But each of them was very carefully put through a kind of fictional prism, so that in the finished book, I like to think the reader can't really find the author anywhere, or to put the same thing another way, he can find the author everywhere. I've always admired Flaubert's great line, the writer's relation to his work must be like that of God to the universe, omniscient and invisible. And I was trying to live up to that ideal." End quote.